Hello everyone, welcome to Advanced Knowledge Systems and a warm welcome to AKS IAS Academy, and it offers examination coaching for UPSC CSE, State Public Service Commission, SSC Combined Graduate Level and CLAT examinations. And about me, I'm Sandeep Bhushan and I take up the analysis of the Hindu newspaper of today's, that is of 14th of May 2021. And throughout my session, I would be emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases from the Hindu newspaper, wherein we will identify the factual, analytical and conceptual questions which will be critical for UPSC Prelims perspective. And while you get into the mode of imbibing the keywords and the key phrases in your answer writing for the mains examinations, your answers would be precise and concise, and thereby you would score higher marks in the mains examination. And this session at AKS IAS Academy, that is Daily News Analysis, will certainly help you to crack both the prelims and mains of 2021. And before we get into the DNA of the newspaper, we would be focusing at the quote of the day. And the quote of the day says that, trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. So what is very important in the midst of your preparation or to attain your goal, it could be short term or long term, or to have success, is that you need to trust yourself. Why? Because it is you who know more than what you think you can do. So definitely trust yourself and you can make it. And now we'll get into the analysis of the newspaper. And the analysis of the newspaper here, it is in regards to the Sputnik V vaccine. And the Niti Aayog member V.K. Paul has made it very clear that the Sputnik V vaccine, which is developed by Russia, that is Gamaleya National Center of Russia, will be available in India for vaccination drive in third week of 2021 May. So definitely the third week of May 2021, as per the Niti Aayog member statement, that the Sputnik V vaccine would be available in India for the vaccination drive. And Niti Aayog member V.K. Paul has made it very clear that India is also proactively engaging with various foreign vaccine manufacturers like Moderna, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. And why it is proactively engaging with the foreign vaccine manufacturers? Because it wanted to make sure that the kind of the surge of the cases in the second wave and the need for vaccination is crucial at this time. So definitely to overcome the shortage of the vaccine in regards to the inoculation or the vaccination drive, it is necessary that India is proactively engaging with the foreign manufacturers like Moderna, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, and it is proactively engaging and asking the foreign vaccine manufacturers to apply for emergency use authorization in India, so that once this will be going ahead with applying the emergency use authorization, definitely the vaccines will be easily imported and made available in India. So what is the very important factor that is mentioned by Niti Aayog member that India is proactively engaging is to make sure that these foreign companies should apply for emergency use authorization. Why? So that we can easily import and the vaccine would be made available in India. And not only that, India is also working with various other like-minded countries so that it is stressing on the IPR waiver, that is intellectual property rights waiver, especially for the COVID-19 vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic situation, wherein this second wave is at a greater impact in India and it is having more of morbidity and mortality rate in India. So that Niti Aayog member has made it very clear that it is proactively engaging with the foreign vaccine manufacturers so that they can apply for emergency use authorization. And the another one which we need to focus is the keyword is here that India with like other like-minded countries is working or stressing on the IPR waiver, that is intellectual property rights in the World Trade Organization. for the COVID-19 vaccine. So what are the keywords? What we need to focus is, one is emergency use authorization, which the country or the India has come into action so that it will make sure that the emergency use authorization, and the second keyword is IPR waiver. So these are the two interventions made by India, and it has been put forward by the Niti Aayog member. So the keywords are emergency use authorization and IPR waiver. And in regards to these two intervention, what we discuss now, which they are taken in conjunction, that is, they both are taken together. The keywords are the intervention, and these two interventions taken by the government of India will ensure easy availability of the vaccines, not only in India but globally too. So this is very, very important factor, that how India is making very clear that it is having an engagement with the foreign manufacturing units or the companies, so that we will have the emergency use authorization which they can apply, and also making it that India is working for the IPR waiver. So these two interventions are very crucial for the availability of the vaccine, not only in India but also globally. And if you look at the Sputnik V vaccine, which is produced or which is manufactured, which is from Russia, is expected to begin the production, that is the local production in India, by the month or from beginning from July at Dr. Reddy's laboratories, which is located in Hyderabad. And the Sputnik V vaccine was also given the emergency use authorization, which has been approved by the DCGI in the month of April, that is Drug Controller General of India. And the Sputnik V was approved by Russia last year, that is in the year 2020. So when we are focusing at the Sputnik V, it is certainly now there is a good news that it will be locally produced, or the local production will happen in the month of July at the Dr. Reddy's laboratories. And the country India has a liberalized pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccination strategy. So this is the strategy which you need to focus for both for prelims as well as mains perspective in regards to the strategy taken up by the government of India, and that is the liberalized pricing. Please do understand in this key phrase the keyword. In the key phrase of the strategy, that is liberalized pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccination strategy, the liberalized pricing is very important, and this is what the new strategy taken up by the government of India. And the new strategy aims at liberalizing the vaccine pricing, scaling up of vaccine coverage, so that it will incentivize the vaccine manufacturers to rapidly increase their production and to attract new vaccine manufacturers, that is the foreign manufacturers. For example, as we discussed, Moderna, Pfizer, and then Johnson and Johnson. So these proactively engaging for the emergency use, IPR waiver, all this, if we look at, it is the new strategy taken up by the government of India in regards to the liberalizing the pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccination strategies. So this is the strategy which is useful for prelims as well as mains perspective, so that it will liberalize the pricing of the vaccine, it will also scale up the vaccine coverage, and it will also augment the production of the vaccine manufacturers, and also attract the foreign manufacturing units or the foreign vaccine manufacturers into India. And this new liberalized pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccination strategy would make the pricing, procurement, and administration of the vaccines more flexible, and it will also ensure, that is, the strategy will ensure increased manufacturing production and a wider availability of vaccine in the country. So these are the positive or the advantage of the new strategy taken up by the government of India, that is liberalized pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccination strategies. So this is the crucial key phrase or the strategy which you need to focus as a civil servant aspirant, that how the government of India is focusing at the pricing, procurement, administration of the vaccine or increasing the vaccine production and the wider availability of the vaccine. So all these are taken up by one strategy, that is liberalized pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccine strategy. And now if you look at the another one is that we would be focusing on the TRIPS. As we discussed that there were two interventions taken by the government of India, that is in regards to the asking the foreign manufacturing or vaccine manufacturing units to apply for the emergency use authorization, and the other one is for the TRIPS waiver, or in regards to the making sure that intellectual property rights waiver. So now we will focus about the more intensively about the TRIPS, or what is the stand of India in regards to the waiver of the TRIP, that is the aspects or the trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, how the government of India is working towards the waiver of the TRIPS in regards to the COVID-19 vaccine and medicines. So this is again very crucial from the prelims and mains perspective. Again, if you look at it, is in regards to the international relations, again focusing further in regards to the WTO, that is World Trade Organization, that is international organizations. If you look at it, is the World Trade Organization which is focusing on the trade related aspects of the intellectual property rights. So what is important is IPR, that is intellectual property rights, which are pertaining to the agreement on trade related aspects. So this is crucial information for both prelims and mains perspective, how India is now working on the TRIPS in regards to the access of COVID-19 vaccine. Now we will focus at how India and various other countries have come forward in regards to the temporary waiver, how the countries like India and South Africa, they both have taken an initiative for a proposal for the temporary waiver of certain provisions which are in the agreement of TRIPS, that is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. So that why India and South Africa have taken the proposal for the temporary waiver, so that once there is a temporary waiver taken up by the WTO members or accepted by the WTO members, so that waiver in the agreement of the TRIPS would facilitate fair, affordable and universal access of COVID vaccine and medicines, especially for the developing countries. So the TRIPS waiver or the temporary waiver or in the agreement of the TRIPS, that is in regards to the trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, are certainly being helpful, or it will have an advantage for the developing countries to have a fair, affordable and universal access of COVID vaccine and medicine. So this is very crucial for the conceptual understanding about how the COVID-19 vaccine and medicines have to be universally made access by fair and affordable process, especially for the developing countries. And that can happen when there is a temporary waiver on certain provisions in the agreement of TRIPS, that is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. And these two countries, that is India and South Africa, have highlighted that there are other few WTO members or few other countries who are part of the World Trade Organization, and these countries have carried out urgent legal amendments to their national patent laws, so that those countries which have now taken up, or the countries which are part of WTO who are taking an urgent legal amendments, or they are going ahead with the legal amendments to their respective countries' national patent laws. Please do understand here, the South Africa and India have highlighted, this is a keyword, have highlighted that few or some WTO members are going ahead with or carrying out the legal amendments to their respective countries or national patent laws, so that these legal amendments will expedite, that means it will fasten or increase the process of issuing compulsory and government use license. So this is a key phrase. Now I will make you understand very categorically the conceptual understanding about how the two countries, that is India and South Africa, are highlighting that few countries which are among the WTO World Trade Organizations are going ahead with the legal, or they are taking up the legal amendments in their respective countries' national patent laws. So here what is important is patent laws are also very crucial keyword. That means the patent laws of the particular countries, they are going ahead with amendments legally, so that they can fasten the process of issuing compulsory and government use licenses. So this is very important, how India has taken the issue of temporary waiver of the TRIPS, so that it will have universal access, affordable and fair of the COVID-19 vaccine and medicines, especially for developing countries. Now, when India is highlighting some of the WTO members, so it is highlighting or it is focusing on the developed countries which are in the mode of getting into the mode of legal amendments to the developed countries' national patent laws, so that they would have, or they would increase the process of the compulsory and government use licenses. So this is very purely in regards to the trade. So please do focus. This is an very crucial information for UPSC mains perspective in regards to the WTO. And now we'll get back to the what is the concern, because the headline says that Centre's Supreme Court affidavit jars. That means it is definitely some kind of, there is an inhibition or there is a damage, or which is not moving in tandem with the TRIPS. This is what the headline says. Centre's Supreme Court affidavit. That means Centre has filed an affidavit with the Supreme Court in regards to the TRIPS. So now we will focus at what is that the government of India has filed an affidavit with the Supreme Court, and in turn, why did Supreme Court file an affidavit why did Centre file an affidavit in the Supreme Court? Because now we will focus at what is the main purpose why the Centre has filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court has come up with an order on April 30, and that April 30 order, the Supreme Court has flagged, or it has raised an importance of the legal framework within which the Centre or the country, that is India, could possibly consider compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents. So look at here. It was first initially a Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of India has come up with an order on April 30 saying that there is a necessity for the legal framework for India, and that legal framework which the Centre has to take up, which will have a possible consider compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents. So this was the order made by the Supreme Court, and in turn the government of India has made its stand clear in the Supreme Court on May 9th in response to this Supreme Court order, that is Supreme Court's April 30 order to come up with a legal framework for compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents. The government of India, or the Centre, has responded for the Supreme Court's April 30 order on May 9th, that saying that bringing the COVID-19 vaccine under a statutory regime, that is under a legal framework or legal regime, would be a counterproductive at this stage. So this is the response to the Supreme Court order of April 30 to the center to form a legal framework for compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents. And what is the response? The government of India has said that bringing the COVID-19 vaccine under the legal framework or under a statutory regime will be a counterproductive at this stage. So this is the response of the government of India or the center, which it has filed or to the Supreme Court. So please do understand the point of having a legal framework for compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents has been raised by the Supreme Court by its order on April 30, and on May 9th the center has responded to the Supreme Court saying that coming up with a legal framework or having a statutory regime for the COVID-19 vaccine at this stage is a counterproductive. And not only that, in response to the center, the public health advocates and intellectual property right experts have pointed to the statement made by the center to the Supreme Court as a contradiction, because India is globally pushing for suspension of intellectual property protection, but wherein India is not ready to, or the center is not ready to come up with a legal framework for the compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents. So definitely there is a criticism by the public health advocates and intellectual property right experts that it says there is a contradiction in India's stand, that India wanting to go ahead with a global push for the suspension or the waiver of intellectual property protection, and the experts in turn very specifically is pointing towards the center's affidavit which has been filed by the center in the Supreme Court. It says that the government is taking a different stand in favor of protection of intellectual property rights. So this is the criticism by the public health advocates and the intellectual property rights experts. So this is an in-depth analysis what we are taking up in regards to the compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents, which the Supreme Court has raised an importance or underscored the legal framework importance. But the center has said that at this time to come up with a legal framework is a counterproductive. But there is a criticism from the public health advocates and intellectual property rights experts that there is a contradiction in regards to what this center or the government of India is raising the point with the World Trade Organization country members in regards to the waiver of the intellectual property rights, and why it is not going ahead with the forming or bringing the legal framework or a statutory regime. Now, if we focus this, according to Article 30 and 31 of the TRIPS agreement, it says that the rights of patent owners by allowing a grant of compulsory license. So, if you look at how or why the Supreme Court has asked the center to frame or to come up with a legal framework in regards to the compulsory licensing or government having an say in the patent laws, because of the articles which are of 30 and 31 in regards to the TRIPS agreement. Please do focus the conceptual understanding. Why the Supreme Court has said is because it is mentioned in Article 30 and 31 of the TRIPS agreement that it can deal with exceptions to the right of patent owners by allowing a grant of compulsory licensing. And the 2001 Doha Declaration very clearly says, that is para 5B of the 2001 Doha Declaration, it says that, or it provides the freedom for each member, that is each country, to grant compulsory licenses. and determine the grounds on which the licenses are granted. So it has invoked or it has mentioned the para 5b, article 30 and 31 of the TRIPS agreement, and also the para 5c of the 2001 Doha declaration. It mentions that each nation or any individual country which are part of the WTO member country can determine what constitutes national emergency or extreme emergency. So it is up to the particular country or the nation to determine what constitutes the national emergency or extreme urgency, and it has the freedom to grant compulsory licenses. And it is also mentioned in the article 30 and 31 of the TRIPS agreement. But the center now has filed an affidavit with the Supreme Court saying that at this stage, to come up with a legal framework or a statutory regime in regards to having a compulsory licensing is a counterproductive. So this is a keyword, counterproductive. So there is an ambiguity which is being raised by the public health advocates and the intellectual property rights, saying that there is a contradiction in regards to what is mentioned in the TRIPS agreement, article 30-31 and the para 5b 5c of 2001 Doha declaration. So here you have a thorough understanding of the entire comprehensive understanding about the TRIPS agreement, or why the Supreme Court has asked the center to come up with a legal framework for compulsory licensing and government acquisition of patents for vaccine against COVID-19. And now we will look at what is center or the government of India trying to find for a solution. The center says that in its affidavit in the Supreme Court that any exercise or any kind of statutory powers or the legal framework under the Patents Act of 1970, which it should be read along with the TRIPS agreement and the Doha declaration, or with any other way, it will prove counterproductive at this stage. This is what the center is trying to say. We are trying to find out a solution, and the government says that it is actively being engaged with global organizations at a diplomatic level to find a solution which will be best possible interest of India and which will not be a counterproductive at this stage. But however, many of them, as we have seen, the experts or the intellectual property right experts and the public health advocates and various others are not impressed. They are not impressed by the balancing act taken up by the government of India in the World Trade Organization and in the Supreme Court of India. And they say that they have called for an urgent steps. For what? For compulsory licensing for COVID-19 vaccine and to ramp up production and availability. So definitely the one who is criticizing public health advocates and the intellectual property rights experts, they are wanting an urgent step, which this Supreme Court has also mentioned or given an order on April 30 to form an legal framework for compulsory licensing and to ramp up production and availability. So this is the crucial information in regards to the TRIPS, trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, which the country is wanting a temporary waiver. But to have a legal framework in India, the center is not really happy to frame or to come up with an statutory regime, because it says it is a counterproductive at this stage. And now we will look at another news which talks about, which India says that, or the WHO is saying that India is still resisting to tag itself as a community spread. And we know that the India's national positivity rate or the infection rate is 21%. This is India's national positivity rate, and out of the 734 districts, 533 are reported more than 10% of the positivity rate. So definitely this speaks volume about the spread of virus in the community. But according to the weekly report of the WHO, it says that is the weekly report of World Health Organization has made it very clear that India is continuing itself to label itself a country with no community transmission. That means India still proves, or India is still labeling itself as a country with no community transmission. And it says that there is a lower or less serious classification called as cluster of cases. It mentions, that is, India is mentioning itself as a cluster of cases, a country with a cluster of cases, but not a country with a community transmission. And this is been emphasized in a weekly report by the World Health Organization, and this is at the midst of India's national positivity rate, which is 21%, and we have experienced, or we have seen that, or witnessed that few states have also touched 40s and few states have crossed 30%. So this is the mention by the weekly report of WHO. And it also says that is in the weekly report, the WHO says that countries like United States, Brazil, United Kingdom and France, out of the 190 countries, have suggested that, or they have labeled themselves as a country which is of community transmission. But India is not accepting, or it is not labeling itself as a community transmitted country. And there are few other countries which are at the top level, which are not, along with India, which do not label themselves as a community transmission, is Italy and Russia, which do not label themselves. But if you look at the community transmission rate, if you look at the number of cases have reduced in both the countries, but still, along with India, it is Italy and Russia which do not label themselves as a country with community transmission. And broadly talking about what is community transmission, that means the community transmission happens when the new cases in the last 14 days cannot be traced to those who have an international travel history, and the community transmission can be said that in the last 14 days cannot be linked to any specific cluster. So we need to understand the keyword of what does the community transmission means. It means that when the cases in the last 14 days cannot be traced and cannot be linked. So cannot be traced to what? Cannot be traced to the international travel history and cannot be linked to the specific clusters. And the WHO has come up with these specific guidelines in regards to the community transmission. And the community transmission, as per the WHO guidelines, it has 4 subcategories under community transmission definition. And the community transmission at the first level till 4th level. And the first level, as per the WHO guidelines, it implies low incidence of locally acquired but widely dispersed cases in the last 14 days, but you have a very low risk of infection in the general population. That is in the first phase of community transmission. Because we said that the WHO guidelines suggest 4 subcategories of the community transmission, and the first one is the locally acquired. It is not internationally, it is locally acquired, and it is of low risk of infection. But if you look at the community transmission at the 4th category, it suggests that it is of the high incidence, wherein in the city 1 it is low incidence, but in the city 4, that is community transmission, 4th level it is, or 4th category, it is high incidence of locally acquired, widespread dispersed cases and very high risk of infection for the general population. So what is very crucial for prelims perspective is that there could be a question on the key term, that is community transmission, because India still do not label itself, even at the national positivity rate, which stands at 21%, do not label itself as a community transmission, and this is mentioned in the weekly report of WHO. So this is crucial for, again, for prelims perspective. And now we will look at the, again, Fcra norms. So this FCRA, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act norms, or the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, we have also focused twice in this week. And yesterday also we have discussed in regards to the FCRA, wherein we have looked at how the NGOs from various states have approached the high courts of the respective states and how they have put forth that there should be some kind of relaxation for the deadline. So we have seen the NGOs coming forward and then raising the issue in regards to the FCRA amendments, which the recent amendments have been taken up by the government in regards to the foreign funds which are getting into India through the NGOs, which is causing an hamper or a hurdle to the COVID-19 relief in the country. And now who has come forward in regards to saying that relax the FCRA norm and ease the relief flow, that is the NASSCOM. So what is this NASSCOM? It is an Infotech Industry Association. So it is an Infotech Industry Association, that is NASSCOM, that is National Association of Software and Service Commission. And now not only NGOs in the past, that is yesterday's news, now the Infotech Industry Association, NASSCOM, has urged the Prime Minister directly, not to the Home Ministry, but to the Prime Minister directly, to temporarily relax the stringent amendments made to the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act norms in September 2020. And they also urged the Prime Minister to ease the flow of overseas COVID-19 relief into the country. And they have also urged the Prime Minister to grant emergency use authorization for the WHO approved vaccines, which will be or which are taken into consideration because of the vaccine shortage domestically. So definitely NASSCOM has come up with the urging the Prime Minister to relax the stringent FCRA norms, to ease the flow of overseas COVID-19 relief, and to grant the emergency use authorization. So these are the three critical asks which the NASSCOM has urged the Prime Minister, which is devastating the economic and social impact because of the second wave of the COVID-19, and it is felt across the country. And this second wave is an unprecedented, and the NASSCOM, that is National Association of Software and Service Companies, have written a letter to the Prime Minister, that is NASSCOM's missive. Missive means it is a communique or communication or the letter to the Prime Minister urging for relaxing the stringent FCRA norms, to ease the flow of overseas COVID-19 relief, and to grant the emergency use authorization. And these are the three critical asks in the letter written by the NASSCOM to the Prime Minister, which is because of the second wave of the COVID-19, which is devastating the economic and social impact, and which is being felt across the country, and it is certainly an unprecedented. And now we will look at what are the three calls in general, and that is the call for greater partnership and greater collaboration across the industries and the government of India. Please do understand, the call is for the greater partnership and collaboration along with the private, that is industries, and the government. And the second one is in regards to the humanitarian crisis which the government or the country is facing. The NASSCOM has requested the government to grant a temporary waiver to the FCRA Act, which it has amended in September 2020, so that once there is a temporary waiver to the FCRA Act, that will enable the NGOs to transfer funds between the FCRA approved NGOs and the non-FCRA approved NGOs. So definitely the NASSCOMs are saying that once there is a temporary waiver to the FCRA Act amendments of September 2020 by the Home Ministry, this will enable the NGOs to transfer the funds from foreign countries, that is the funds which can get from or between the FCRA approved NGOs to the non-approved NGOs. That means once the FCRA approved NGOs will get the foreign funds, that foreign funds can be again transferred to the non-FCRA approved NGOs, and thereby the entire the COVID-19 relief can take place without any hurdle and without any hamper. So that is the NASSCOM which has written a letter, and it says that it is a humanitarian crisis now, which is a economic and social impact. And the third one is the NASSCOM, which has written a letter which it's saying that it is strongly pitching for liberalizing the vaccine imports. And why it is wanting the liberalizing of the vaccine imports? Because by doing so, it can provide an emergency use authorization for all the foreign manufacturing units or the foreign vaccine manufacturing units such as Pfizer, Moderna and J&J, that is Johnson & Johnson, so that there will be no vaccine divide in the country. Yes, certainly we can experience that there is a vaccine divide in the country, and to overcome that vaccine divide in the country, NASSCOM is strongly pitching, and which it has written a letter in that it is strongly pitching for the liberalizing the vaccine imports, wherein the government can provide emergency use authorization for the foreign vaccine manufacturing units, so that there will be no vaccine divide. So this is a keyword for the prelims as well as mains perspective. No vaccine divide. We have seen digital divide during the COVID-19 pandemic situation also in regards to the education. Now it is vaccine divide. Please do understand these keywords, which will be crucial for the mains examination, and how you need to focus if it is asked in regards to the digital divide. What is the divide digitally in India in the various urban areas or various comparing with the urban and rural areas? The same way in regards to the vaccine divide in regards to the urban and then rural India. And then also in regards to the urban, semi-urban and then rural India. So definitely the two keywords which you need to focus for mains perspective is digital divide and vaccine divide during the COVID-19 pandemic situation, wherein it is impacting the poor and vulnerable people. And I hope this session was informative, knowledgeable, and also very crucial for mains and prelims perspective. So I would say a very big thank you to all and a good luck to you all. Do maintain consistency, stick to your schedule and take care of your physical health and mental health. And do not forget to like the video, share the video and subscribe the English Medium YouTube channel, and also have access to the website and Telegram link of AKS IAS Academy, that is Advanced Knowledge System. And then see you again tomorrow with the daily news analysis at AKS IAS Academy. Till then, thank you, goodbye, and then take care.